in that book, it has a picture of that tow truck after everything's over said and done, and it's just melted to the ground. Oh my gosh! Now you guys are pretty much being overrun, aren't you? I mean, the odds are just so overwhelming. The amount of RPGs, the rocket propelled grenades that are being fired in at you, the small arms fire.
It was a constant barrage of explosions and machine gun fire, and it did kind of just pick a direction and shoot because it's coming from everywhere.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the very next episode of Game of Crimes with Murph in the Morning. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming back every week, supporting me and supporting the show here, and especially supporting our guest. Now, you hear me say every week, I bring on some of the biggest studs and studettes that you'll find anywhere. A lot of these folks, they're not on other people's podcasts. I go searching for folks. It's nice still having friends in the law enforcement and the military community that make recommendations. And this guy today, oh my gosh, I told him before we started, I typically have 1 page of notes on an outline. I have 2.5 pages today. This is going to be, I've been looking forward to this one for quite a while. So it's my honor and pleasure to welcome today's guest, and that's Mike Denton. Mike, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, everybody. Thank you very much for having me, sir.
Stop calling me sir and don't call me Mr. Murphy. And we've been over this about 4 times already today.
I know. Old habits die hard.
We'll see how it goes. I appreciate the respect, brother. I really do.
Yes, sir. You've earned it.
Oh, I don't know about that, but we'll see how it goes. But Mike here, and I just want to give you a preview. Mike was 4 years, right, in the U.S. Army?
Yes, sir. About 4 years and 3 months.
All right, in paratroopers?
Yes, sir.
And now he's been a police officer here in Orlando with the Orlando Police Department for about 10 years. And I'm just setting the groundwork here just so you know who we're talking about. I mean, I'm in awe of the guy. I just got to tell you. And here's why. I'm going to show you this at the beginning. Mike did not write this book, but the book is about him and some of his comrades in arms while they were in Afghanistan. And I got it on my Kindle. So it's The Chosen Few. It's been out since, I think, 2017. But if you haven't read this and you want to know more about what was going on in Afghanistan, these guys, I tell you what, if I'm in a room where any of you or your friends, your colleagues, your comrades are at a bar, they will not buy a drink in my presence. What you guys went through, you survived the hardships, the challenges. Oh my gosh, it's just unbelievable. We're going to get into that. But before we do, let me get this book out of the way because it'll just be in my way. You know how we do here on the show, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to have a little fun here to start. So I got to give you this disclaimer before we get into our small town police blotter. And this is a show about crime. We talk about bad people doing bad things. We talk about bad people doing bad things to good people. We take our stories very seriously, but we're going to have a good laugh at all the criminals that we possibly can because we're in Florida. There's an abundance of funny stories that come out of Florida.
Well, Florida man strikes again.
Always. And I was just telling Mike here before we got started that as I was looking up articles for today, I thought, man, I'm tired of talking about Florida every time we have a show. And Mike here is originally from Michigan, as he's going to tell you. And so I found a story that I thought sounded good for him. And then I kept reading. Let me tell you, I think Michigan's got as many stories as Florida does. So today you're going to have 2 stories from Michigan. So Mike, if you would, I'm going to let you kick it off, brother, and tell us what's going on up there.
Absolutely. Well, just breaking now, a story out of Michigan. A meth trafficker who wore a DARE t-shirt will serve a minimum of 15 years in prison. A methamphetamine trafficker who was wearing a DARE t-shirt when arrested by Michigan narcotics agents was sentenced to a minimum of 15 years in prison. Jeffrey Elton Schmidge, 48, was arrested last year following a raid at his residence that yielded large quantities of crystal meth, prescription medication, marijuana, a firearm, and ammunition, according to the local narcotics task force. Schmidge pleaded guilty to multiple felony narcotic counts. Investigators identified him as the leader of a ring that brought meth from Minnesota into Gogebic County in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Schmidge has a lengthy rap sheet that includes 9 felony and 6 misdemeanor arrests. That must have been a triple dog DARE t-shirt that he was wearing to get him to do all that.
Oh, well,
Can't make it up.
I saw his mugshot. He actually does have the DARE t-shirt on.
Oh, that's incredible. You can't make it up.
That's I told Mike here he wasn't aware we have a Patreon channel. It's patreon.com/Game of Crimes. A little cheesy advertisement for that there. But one of my monthly sections is you can't make this shit up. It's all about the crazy criminals. It's ridiculous. This guy, 48 years old, he's old enough to know better than doing that. Unbelievable. But what you don't know, Mike, is we have a rule here on Game of Crimes. And our number one rule, what is that, kids? Don't do meth.
Seems to be a pretty genuine rule.
Well, when you read stories like that, you understand why we have that rule, right?
Absolutely. If you're going to do it, don't wear a Dare t-shirt. You're not undercover.
Well, it's like daring the cops. Hey, no, I'm not a drug dealer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy stories. But
I love it.
Thank you, Mike. I want to read the one now.
Let me read that.
No, my brother, this is all good, all good. And this comes out of Michigan also, out of Bay City, Michigan. And this one's just a little bit longer, but I started reading it and then I started doing research on it, and this is just outrageous. Okay, we've got this titled "The Busted Michigan Sex Toy Bandits." That sounds interesting. That's what might be what got my attention to start with. Make crowdfunding pitch for wedding funds. And this is a little bit older story. This came out of, just 8 years ago, but it's just such a good story. Bolstered by their recent arrest, Michigan's sex toy bandits, and that's their name now, the sex toy bandits, sought to cash in on their notoriety with a crowdfunding appeal that described the duo as real people problems. Yeah, they got problems. In the Facebook post reporting that the sex toy bandits are out, William Cornelius, that's idiot one, asked if anyone, and I'm just going to read this quote, anyone know how I can make money off this, unquote. The 25-year-old then noted that he was, quote, trying to get this wedding popping, adding that the nuptials going to be at the Dollar Tree. Let me tell you, I go to the Dollar Tree. Don't be besmirching a good establishment like that, all right? Okay. And I really do go to the Dollar Tree. Okay.
A $1.25 tree now.
I know. It's they should name $1 and up because you can't find anything for $1.
Yeah, super misleading.
Yeah. So the previous week, Cornelius proposed to Sherry Moore. She's 20 years old. I got to pull this off the screen so I can see your face when I say this. He proposed to her over a loudspeaker at the Walmart in Bay City, Michigan.
If that doesn't say love.
Well, he probably could have got matching T-shirts there.
Oh, I hope so.
Okay. Minutes later, Cornelius was arrested for swiping items from a Spencer's gift shop with a combined value of $80.93. Included in the haul was a bride-to-be thong, a $14.99 vibrator, BJ Blast oral sex candy, and a $5.99 edible thong.
Man, it's doing it up big.
Well, if you want to give your bride a gift, I'm not sure those are the ones that you give her, but hey, maybe that's what they do in Bay City. Cornelius reportedly told police the items were for his fiancée, who was collared for stealing jewelry from Walmart, the same Walmart where the two became engaged. So
it's like Romeo and Juliet.
They got to use the loudspeaker system. They got to steal from them too. I don't have a lot of patience for a thief, so
no.
About an hour after his original Facebook message, Cornelius, idiot one, posted a link on a GoFundMe page soliciting wedding funds. The page, which included Cornelius Bandits in their URL, sought a maximum of $10,000 and appeared to have been authored by Sherry Moore. That's idiot number two. The pitch read, yes, we are the sex toy bandits. We are real people with real problems. We need help raising money for our wedding because I'm currently pregnant and homeless. We do not want our baby born out of wedlock. Anything will help. Thank you for taking the time to read our story, and thank you in advance for your help. Okay, you kind of feel sorry for them until we get to the bottom of this article. It is unclear whether the fundraising bid yielded any cash since the GoFundMe page has been deleted, but a screen grab of the page taken 7 hours after the appeal was launched showed no donations to the couple. Wow, I can't talk right now. It is unclear whether the fundraising bid yielded any cash since, did I just read that in advance? Yeah, I just read that. Oh man, this is going to be a good show today. I can't even remember where I am here. The GoFundMe pitch was criticized by Cornelius's family members, and that's idiot number one of whom wrote, really, Billy? Why not get a job like everybody else does? There you go. Get a job. And are you serious? Another relative commented, I'm sorry to say this to you, but you disappoint me. I told you then that's why they don't spell these words out. She's like, I've told you this before. We have B and a 4, the letter B and the number 4. But you, with the letter U, disappoint me. I love you. And rather than and, it's in. And that's why, the letter Y, I'm so effing disgusted. It's not funny at all. So I just thought the whole story.
Bonnie and Clyde, who?
Exactly. Oh, and when I was looking up the article, I saw a picture of them from their Facebook page, and they're snuggled up, and the idiot number 2, Sherry, is giving everybody the middle finger.
Oh,
that's a very classy way, to show your appreciation when you're asking people for money, right?
oh yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Mike, if I had to guess, I'm pretty sure there's meth involved in this in some part of their lives. And again, what's our number 1 rule? Don't do meth. That's right. So see, we're an educational show too. Actually, we just have a lot of fun with what we do here. I love it. So thank you for participating in that. I know it's kind of silly, but it's a great way to start it. And our regular listeners, when I try to take it out, they always fuss at me and tell me to bring it back. So it makes it so much more fun when our guest participates.
I love to take a good trip back home.
You're not from Bay City, are you? I should guess that's
a little far away from there, but that's still Michigan, people.
There you go. Well, if you're wondering how Mike and I met, I go to a local gym here, and there's several police officers that are still on active duty that go there, and I've gotten to know them and befriend them. And one of them is a Captain Jerry Generin with Orlando Police. And Jerry, if I screwed up your last name, I apologize, brother. But he knows what I do, and he knows about my background and my career. And he came to me one day and he said, "Hey, are you looking for guests on the show?" Well, I'm always looking for guests, especially heroes. And he said, "We got a guy on the PD here that you need to talk to." I said, "Okay, tell me a little bit about him." And he started telling me, and I think the first words came out of his mouth was Silver Star. And if you know anything about our military, that's the 3rd highest award you can get for actions in battle, I guess is a nice way to put it. So that immediately got my attention. And I tried to do a little research on Mike. And you kind of hard to find anything about you on the internet. I was lucky today. I did some more research today and went a little further in depth and came up with some new stuff. But if I'm going to say it again, I know I've already said it once, to welcome you on the show, Mike. It is a true honor to have you on here, not only because of your military career, but because of what you got going on here at the Orlando Police Department too, man. So thank you for coming on the show.
Here. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a huge, huge blessing to be here. Huge privilege to be asked to come on here and do this and give some testimony and talk about my brothers and some of the incredible men I got to serve with and the men and women I get to serve with now at the Orlando Police Department.
Absolutely. And that thing about being an honor to be on here, well, let's see how you feel at the end of the interview, okay? We'll see how this goes. So you've already mentioned to us that you were originally from Michigan. Just give us a little idea about your background, where you grew up, what your family looked like, siblings, brothers, sisters, high school, playing sports, run-ins with the law. Anything funny is always welcome. Good stories.
Yeah, so I grew up in a border city of Detroit called Southfield and lived there for the majority of my life growing up, and moved out to a little city out to the west called Farmington Hills, lived there for a little bit. My parents split up kind of early when I was about 7, and I kind of went back and forth from here to Florida a little bit in this little place called Yankeetown in Inglis over off the Gulf Coast, just north of Crystal River. Nobody's ever heard of it, but so kind of went back and forth there, and I was getting in some trouble up in Michigan around my 8th grade year, and my mom was, "You're a little craphead, and you need to go live with your father to straighten you out a little bit." So moved down here freshman year, and went to a couple different high schools, and then ended up joining the Army from there. But yeah, typical childhood growing up. I had a couple run-ins with the law. I got into skateboarding a lot, and we know where that goes. And so the skaters versus cops thing was really big back then.
Did that follow you to Florida?
No, my dad straightened me out pretty good.
Yeah. Dads have a tendency to do that, don't they?
Yeah. Yes, they do.
That is the dads that are being dads.
Yeah.
We see way too much today in today's society where fathers are not fathers, which is why I have so much admiration for a lot of the former military guys I bring on here. They have a lot of classes. They have their own businesses, is what it is, but they're trying to teach men how to be men.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a lot of good programs out there that are doing that, and so trying to be a good dad to my kids.
Yeah. I think you are, because Well, we'll talk about that when we get to your police career. But I got to tell you, for the listeners, it took me a little while to get Mike on here because we went through the approval processes with Orlando PD. I'm not here to, you guys know, this is all about portraying law enforcement, military, and first responders in the most positive light and bringing to you, showing you the dedication, the perseverance, the commitment, the focus that's required to survive and to protect our public, whether that's military, police, or first responders. That applies to all in there. We bust on firemen a lot. I didn't realize that Mike's dad was a fireman. So, Mr. Denton, I'm sorry, but maybe you'll get a real job one day, sir.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about earlier. I'm the only police officer in my family.
Wow.
So my brother, my dad, my stepmom, all my brother's wife, all paramedics, EMTs. My dad was a firefighter for a little while up in Michigan. Then they moved down here, and I'm the only black sheep in the family that became a cop.
You're the only one that got a real job.
Yeah.
I'm going to hear about this. Yeah. But, I mean, right there, that's a testament to your family. Your whole family was a public servant in some form or another. And I know some of our regular listeners get tired of hearing me say this. A lot of people view that term public service as a derogatory term. I don't. I see that as a badge of honor because you and everybody that's in public service have dedicated your lives to helping your fellow man, people we don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
How can that be wrong?
Yeah,
except for you talk to these defund the police idiots, and that's a different story. So we'll save that for another bitch session, maybe at a bar or something. I don't know. Anyway, so your brother was EMT also, huh?
Yeah, and he was actually in the Army too. So that was a big reason why I chose to go to the Army. My brother had joined right out of high school. And I saw the awesome things. He was a tanker, so an Abrams guy. And right, the cav and the infantry, they always kind of butt heads with each other, but it was really cool. And I always looked up to my older brother, and I'm proud of the man that he is today. And so I wanted to kind of follow in his footsteps, which kind of helped lead me there. And so
that's very admirable. How much older is he than you?
A year and a half.
Oh, that's not much, but that's admirable. I mean, it's wonderful to hear siblings getting along later in life.
Yeah, we weren't so much growing up. We butted heads a lot. My kids will ask about Uncle Billy, and we're a lot closer now. And so he and his family will come over and we'll hang out. And they were just over here a couple weekends ago, hanging out for a little bit. And so it took us a little while to get there, but I love him.
Yeah. He's here in Florida also?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Is he still an EMT now?
No, he and his wife actually do medical insurance now. They actually wanted people that were working pretty much like in the first responder role to come over and kind of help out a little bit. Like my mom too, when she retired from Lake County EMS, she actually works up in Jacksonville now, and she's got actually a really neat job where she's on the clock for about 12 hours, and it's kind of like getting dispatched to calls. And so if you need to go to the ER, but you don't need to take up a bed, they'll actually send you home with everything you need, and she just will respond to the house and help you out.
Nice.
So kind of like us, working a 12-hour shift, and you take the calls as they come. And I don't know how many major cities it's in right now. Jacksonville's one, a couple around the U.S., and I think they're trying to branch out even more. But talking to her, that's kind of a neat gig.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard that one. And my wife is, she's a retired registered nurse, and she kind of keeps up with what's going on. But I'll have to ask her if she's heard of that too, because travel so much. She's like, I'm going to get another job. No. Hey,
yeah,
please don't.
Well, she thought about getting into doing the travel nurse stuff, especially when COVID kicked off. You can make good money doing the travel nurse thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of like you want to weigh how much you want to be home versus how much you want to be away. The money can be great everywhere, but if you're not spending time at home, the money doesn't mean anything.
Right. You've never met him, but my old DEA partner, Javier Pena, lives down San Antonio, and his wife does that. She has a company. Her and her daughter have their own company where they contract out traveling nurses to different medical facilities around the country. So she's always looking for resumes. It's extremely busy business. When you were in high school, did you play any sports?
I did weightlifting.
What was your specialty?
So we did bench press, squat, and then clean and jerk.
So, all right. So tell me, how many pounds can you bench press? Or could you, or then, or now?
See, back then, my prime, back there when I was a strong young man, I think the most I got in high school was, 255. And I
Wow.
was super pumped about that.
Yeah.
But later on in life, when I really got into exercising, got a little bit stronger, but that was fun. I really enjoyed exercising and working out. And so that was a perfect fit for me. And then, of course, going to the military, just kind of all the PT you do there.
Yeah. But so when you did go to the Army, you were in good shape. That wasn't a major challenge for you, right?
No, sir.
And you chose the Army. I think you said you chose the Army because your brother went in there.
Yes, sir.
And did you know at that time you wanted to be a paratrooper?
I knew that I wanted to just fight, and that was it. And I knew I wanted to get a job where I was going to see combat. And, I'm always cautious of what I ask for. That's not a knock on anybody. I didn't want to do anything else other than some sort of fighting combat job. And so when I went there, I actually talked to the recruiter about getting a Ranger contract. He told me they didn't have any, but they had an Airborne Infantry contract. And I said, "Bam, I'll take it." It's just a testament as to how God has lined me up where I'm supposed to be and the places I'm supposed to be for His glory, and He was going to take care of me. And had I gotten that Ranger contract or had I done something else, I wouldn't have been with the guys that I was with and in the situations I've been in. But yeah, I knew I wanted to do some sort of fighting job.
That first time you stepped out of the airplane, you had a little issue, didn't you?
I sure did. So you're supposed, like, the way that airborne schools go is you have ground week where you learn how to do everything. And then you have tower week, the 250-foot towers. And then your third week of jump school is jump week. Well, we didn't do the 250-foot towers. So the first time I ever rode a parachute was out of the bird. And as soon as I come out, you count to that 4 seconds. You got your hands in your reserve chute, because if you don't feel the snap back, you're pulling your reserve. So I get to 4,000, my chute opens up, and then the risers spin. And they're spinning so bad that you're taught to bicycle kick. So you pull the risers on the T-10 Delta, and you pull it apart, and you start bicycle kicking. And that was my first experience. Once that settled out, I was, man, this is incredible. Now I can stop panicking and just enjoy the view from 1,200 feet.
Oh, did it ever cross your mind during that few seconds there that, why didn't I get on Rangers? Why didn't I go to Rangers?
So they'd make you go to airborne school. So no matter what. Oh, yeah. So Rangers, if you go to the SF Baby program, you have to go to jump school right after you graduate from basic training. So the infantry does OSET, so one station unit training. So your 9 weeks of basic training, and then you stay there for the 5 or 6 weeks of infantry training. But you stay with your same drill sergeants. And then once that's done, if you have an airborne contract, you go to the airborne hold. And usually it could be a week long. So while you're in airborne hold, because they know we're going to go out and do dumb stuff, they give us a job to do during the day. And so one of my jobs was you go down and you're helping out the riggers down the hangar.
Oh, okay.
And you're watching them pack parachutes. And so one of the things we had to do is all these parachutes are lined up, and they have a little, on the old T-10 Deltas, I don't know about the new ones, but they had like a little pocket for a booklet. And you put your initials in there, and also if something goes wrong with the chute, they know who to come looking for. So they said that the Black Hats told us, hey, any of these little booklets out, you need to check them. And those parachutes are bad. Oh, okay, all right. So you're kind of looking and doing this. Well, we get to jump week, and I get my chute on. The jump master comes over. They're doing their whole thing, checking your chute. It's an incredible process watching these guys check everything. And so you're squat, hold, and making sure all your straps are tight. Well, I look, and the booklet on my parachute is hanging out. And I was like, oh, this is bad. This is not supposed to be like this. And so he comes by and he checks my stuff, and I was like, excuse me, gentlemen, like my booklet's hanging out. And he packs it back in, and he goes, I think you'll be all right. And then walks away. And I'm like, that's I'm not gonna be all right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little nerve-wracking, but it ended up working out.
And what is a Black Hat?
They are the airborne instructors.
Gotcha. Had a feeling that's what it was, but just to make sure. Now, was that at Fort Benning? Is that where you did much for that? It was Fort Benning, Georgia, right?
Yes, sir.
Was it summertime?
That was so I started January of 2006, and then graduated in, I think, April. So April, May-ish time frame is when I went there.
So it wasn't too miserably hot then?
No, not too bad, but it was still hot.
Yeah, I've been over there. It's like no breeze. I don't think the breeze ever blows through there. So now, what's your next step after? Do you have to go through additional training, like advanced infantry training and things like that, before you sign up to go overseas, or before they ship you out? Is that right?
So I got done with airborne school, got done with basic training, like OSET, the infantry training, went to airborne school, and then I had orders to go to Vicenza, Italy with the 173rd. So I went home for, I think, 2 weeks back to Michigan just to see my mom. And I actually have a little sister and an older sister, which I forgot to mention earlier. And my mom and my stepdad were still living in Farmington Hills at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to spend some time with them, see my grandmother, and then I actually left and went straight to Italy.
How was that? That's a little bit different than Michigan or
was
Florida,
incredible.
isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit different. I was 18 and a half when I got over there, and not really knowing what I was getting myself into. And there were only a couple of us that showed up at the time, and they put you in a van and they drive you from the airport to Caserma Ederle or Camp Ederle. And hey, go check in. And now you're in the big army, and now it's real. And you're like, oh, okay. So
Had you never been out of the country?
Just to Canada, but that was right across the street from Detroit. So Windsor, but that was it. Nowhere else.
Wow. I read in the book there. I read about. Seems like there was an excellent setup for you guys. A lot of camaraderie building there. Even your I don't know if it's the NCOs or maybe the lower ranking officers could put their. I know you're not supposed to fraternize between listed and officers, but it seems like y'all had a good thing going there that built a relationship between everybody that paid off in the long run.
Yes, I think there's a big thing when you get stationed in a foreign country. You could be stationed here. You could be stationed in all the different military bases that are here, but you can leave post and you're still in America.
Right.
Everybody speaks English. You this is where you're raised. This is where you're from. When we're stationed in Italy, you don't just go off post and hang out with the local population. So we were super close with each other. And E5s, you could get an apartment off post, but E5 still lived in the barracks. And so everybody got super close with each other. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool because everybody kind of learned the difference between work and play. And so that was a huge thing that if, you get smoked at work, it's probably because you did something wrong. But at night, we're going to drink and go out and hang out and party with each other. And so, yeah, you had to be close.
When you talk about drink, you're talking sodas and iced tea and
sometimes unsweet.
On the rocks. Neat.
Yeah. That twisted tea. Yeah. Yeah, some waters on the rocks, yeah.
What year did you join the Army?
2006. Actually joined, I guess you could say 2005. I was a senior in high school, and I actually only did half my senior year. So I didn't finish out and graduate with everybody else. It was my third high school. Mm-hmm. It was actually where I met my wife. And I knew I wanted to join the Army. College was not going to be for me. And so I went to the recruiter and got a contract, and I joined in 2005 the delayed entry program or the DEP program. And then I think it was December, I turned 18 on December 13th. December 21st, I picked up my diploma. And by January 6th, I was in basic training.
Wow. I'm glad you said that. You picked up your diploma because you didn't drop out of high school. You graduated early.
Yes, sir. All I needed was 2 electives. And so the way the block scheduling was set up, I went to school every other day.
Yeah.
If I wasn't in school, I was working on the farm.
Yep. And what unit were you assigned to now that you're over in Italy?
I was assigned to Chosen Company of the 173rd Airborne. So it's a battalion of the 503rd.
I'm glad you said all that because I've got it written down, and I probably wouldn't have pronounced it in the right way that you just said that. But you guys were known as the Rock, right?
Yes, sir.
This is a unit that has an extremely renowned history, right?
Yes, sir.
This isn't just like a bunch of guys get together and we're going to send them out here. You come from people that go into this unit, that lineage tracks back to some unbelievable events that happened that came out successfully because of members of the Rock.
Yes, sir. So you have World War II, Vietnam, and then the deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. So it's a very prestigious unit and a huge blessing that I got assigned there.
And then when you got to Italy, you knew you're on your way to Afghanistan, right?
We didn't know for sure. So the unit had done their first deployment when they got revamped. Mm-hmm. They went to Iraq, and then the second deployment or the first one to Afghanistan. And then there was some talk. We didn't know. We kind of thought we might be going back to Iraq. And then a couple months later, they changed it and told us we were going to be going to Afghanistan. But we knew that at some point we were going to deploy again because you usually have about a year and some change between deployments. We knew that we were going to be getting deployed somewhere, and it ended up being Afghanistan.
If you had a preference, what would you have preferred?
Oh,
Not that you do have a preference, but
Oh, yeah. I'm glad that I ended up going to Afghanistan. My brother was in Iraq, and the IED stuff, God bless those guys.
Yeah.
God bless our troops in Iraq. All the IEDs, the videos of them shooting or throwing the shape charges with the parachutes on them that would swing back, and they had to shape charge, and you see all these convoys constantly getting hit by IED. Like that looked miserable.
what a nightmare.
But then they showed us pictures of Afghanistan, and it's this mountain, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, we got to go up there? Okay, but we're the light infantry. So, all right, let's go.
I went over there in 2011 to Kabul, was just for a 2-week TDY on some. I'd been promoted to the higher ranks of DEA at that point, and we were implementing a new program that our offices in Afghanistan could really benefit from.
Yeah.
And while we were there, that we got to go to Bagram, Kunduz, Jalalabad, and Kandahar. They wouldn't let us go out in the really, really bad provinces, but hell, by then I was a little bit older, and I think I had knee problems. But seeing the Hindu Kush Mountains,
yeah,
oh my gosh, I tell you what, they're beautiful.
It is. If it wasn't for all the explosives and the firefights, Afghanistan is a beautiful country.
Yeah,
beautiful country. Where we were at down south is more desert. Up where I was at, just kind of a couple provinces below where it fingers off between Pakistan, is incredible. Nice gray mountains. Oh, the snow time was beautiful. Just a beautiful place. And then pine trees. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's just
dangerous.
Yeah, just dangerous.
It was. I remember at the DEA base, you could see. I mean, there's mountains everywhere, but the big mountains in the distance. This was wintertime. It was probably February, and there was snow on the mountains. And when the winds would blow, you could see when the sun was shining just right. You could see the snow mist off the top of those mountains, and it's probably 10 miles away. This just, I mean, it was very awe-inspiring, to be honest with you. It's something I've never seen before.
Yeah, very beautiful.
Not at all what I expected to see over there, but it's a shame that they've just got that continuing battle between religious factions that's been going on for years and years and years, and I mean, like thousands of years.
Oh, yeah. It's all tribal warfare, thousands of years.
Yeah. When you got moved to... Now, is Afghanistan your first overseas deployment?
Yeah, I only did one deployment.
Okay. And it lasted 15 months, I think I read?
Just shy of 15 months, yes, sir.
Yeah. Tell us where you ended up in Afghanistan.
Our platoon, I was in 2nd Platoon of Chosen Company. We first went to our battalion headquarters, which was Camp Blessing, which was in the Kunar province, up like the Pesh River Valley. And then a couple of our 1st platoon was split in half, and they went up to some further, like smaller FOBs north of us. But that's where we were stationed at. So Ranch House and then Kot Bella were our 2 farthest northern bases at the time. It was super small, only a couple of GI Joes there. The platoon was kind of split in half up there, and our platoon stayed at Blessing for a little while. And after some events happened, we actually went out to kind of supplement them and just kind of traded back and forth.
And that was, he mentioned to you, ladies and gentlemen, Chosen Company, and that's where the name of the book came from, The Chosen Few. I mean, you got to take a name like that, right?
Yeah, The Chosen Few Punishers, yes, sir.
I like it. I'm looking at my notes as we go through because I don't want to get too far ahead. Were you in Blessing when Ranch House had the big battle in August of 2007?
We were actually out on a combined operation. A couple different platoons throughout the battalion. We were out just kind of walking around the mountains, kind of seeing if we could stir up and disrupt any Taliban activity when that firefight happened. And then myself and some of my squad and kind of a mixture of guys in 2nd Platoon went out there to supplement them. And we stayed out there for a couple months until we ended up burning the place down in October of that year.
Literally.
Yeah, we actually literally burned down. I remember one guy we had, we were setting claymores together. Just you trying to destroy the hooches, and because as soon as you leave, the Taliban and local populace they're gonna come in there and kind of scavenge whatever they can, and
right.
And I'll look around and see if you left anything good for them. So we literally burned that place down.
And I read, and this is all in the book too, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, and then I've supplemented with a little other research. But that particular battle, the Americans were outnumbered. I read 7-1. In forces and manpower. I mean, just overwhelming odds. And all these few battles we're going to talk about here today, it's amazing because it's just unbelievable that any of you guys are still alive. That's it's just it's like you said, man. You be careful what you ask for because God just might give it to you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So you want to go to battle, and he's like, "Okay, here, boy."
Yeah.
Here,
Well, it's
here you
just kind of
go.
like being a police officer.
Yeah,
You get some that
exactly.
I want to get into this and I want to get into this. Well, you may get what you're asking for, and it may not end up the way you want it to.
Right. So when you guys burned down a house and now you move back to a place called Bella, is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And I read in there it's referred to as the Dixie Cup. And can you explain that a little bit?
I didn't even know it was called a Dixie Cup.
That's what it says in the book. And and I think what he's talking about is how it's down in a valley when you got these towering mountains over top of you.
Oh, yeah. So it's kind of like you've got, and the only way to get to us, to anybody to get to the ranch house or Bella was there was no driving. One of the creepiest things that kind of I saw it at Bella was we were on a patrol and my team leader is in front of me and we're moving down the roadway and he stops and he picks up a part of a lower receiver from an M4. And it had been from where 10th Mountain had taken an IED on that road coming into Bella. And here it is all this time later. And he finds this part of a receiver for it. And so that was kind of creepy, but yeah, there's no getting to us in Humvees. It's all by bird. And most of the time they're getting shot at coming in there. You have the river kind of the first valley comes up and it kind of splits off into two other valleys. And so now we're just 360 degrees surrounded by mountains. And so we're literally sitting down right off the river.
Was that the same for Ranch House? Was it at lower ground?
Ranch House was way up in the mountain, but it still wasn't at like the top peak of the mountain itself. You still had to climb up, but then Afghanistan is super misleading when you get to a mountain. You're all excited because you've been climbing all day and you think, oh man, this is the top. And then you get to what you think is the top and it just keeps going. And so it was kind of on the side of a mountain, but up high, up into the valley.
And the reason I point this out, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why would you have a base in the low ground? You always want the high ground so that you can shoot down on your adversaries, not be shot at from the adversaries who are above you.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was some, I'm not even going to say logical thinking. I know from what I read in the book, I think the attempt was to create a relationship with the Afghani locals.
Yeah.
And this was done in conjunction with the Afghani government where, I mean, this is a lawless area. They're not used to anybody coming and telling them what to do. Some of this area is where when the Russians were there, the Taliban, those guys using the same tactics ran the Russians off, if I got that correct.
Yeah, I actually talked to one of our company commanders from our Afghan, our ANA, our Afghan soldiers. I talked to one of the company commanders one day. There was actually an interpreter that came back. He escaped Afghanistan when the Russians came in. And it's from Washington, D.C. now, married a French lady, has 2 daughters, and at the time, so we were talking, and he would tell me that how they would sneak up at prayer call and they would cut C wire and they'd leave, and they'd come back the next morning at prayer call and they'd cut C wire and they'd leave, and then on the final day they'd go up there and they would just completely take out the OPs. And I was like, man, it's
what's C wire?
The Constantine wire. So all the barbed wire that you see and big spools that are around the HESCOs and just to keep everything out. Same thing you see at some of the jails.
Yeah,
all that big Constantine wire to keep, it's all fine blades on it, and so yeah, they would cut it and they'd leave. And I remember sitting there drinking chai with this guy, and he was just casually telling me how they would go about it. And it's like, man, this guy has been his whole life. This guy's whole life has been fighting.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned HESCOs. Can you describe for our listeners what that is?
Yeah, so HESCO is you fill it with dirt. It's a big kind of rectangle. Think about like a massive sandbag.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got like cloth inside to hold all the dirt or sand in, and then it's got metal wire around it.
And you're talking aren't those about 8 feet high or higher?
They could be around 6 feet, 7 feet. But you also would stack them, so you could stack them up and make big walls out of them.
Yeah, yeah, and that's usually your perimeter protection, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. When there was a big battle at Dixie Cup, right?
On November 9th of 2007, members of our first platoon were actually coming back. So once the ranch house had closed, they went back out there for a Shura meeting, just a meeting with the locals and the elders. And on their way back to Bella, they were ambushed. And that's where one of our guys, Kyle, received the Medal of Honor for his actions that day. But we ended up losing 5 of our 1st platoon soldiers and a Marine who was attached to them. They were killed.
It's easy to be an armchair quarterback. Hindsight's 20/20. Whatever little saying you want to use on this. And you talk about the Shures, and that's, I think, to pretty much everybody, it was understood that this is BS. That why are we going up there, taking this dangerous trip up there, and have to take that dangerous trip back?
Yeah.
And when you got up there, the tribal chief treated everybody like they're bastard children, didn't want anything to do with you. It just seemed like it was all obviously a setup for an ambush.
Yeah.
And then when you read through the details of that ambush, our soldiers, it was unbelievable what they went through. It's horrific. Ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to read the book. I don't know the author, but if you want to know what our military did and does around the world, this is a play-by-play detailed section about what these guys are going through. And I read the author's, what he went through to write the book, the interviews he did, the access to information he was given. It's pretty unbelievable. But then you read that, you wonder if it's true. Well, we got a man right here on the screen with us telling us it's true. So it's, my gosh, you got to have a completely different mindset when you get into that arena where you seriously, I'm not trying to make up cliche sayings here, but you literally don't know if you're going to wake up the next morning.
Yeah. And those guys, our 2nd platoon, we were at Camp Blessing when that call came in, and they spun our platoon up as QRF to go out there and help them.
QRF.
And we got out there, quick reaction force. Because we actually stayed there in our time at Blessing. We were kind of used around the AO, the area of operations, as a QRF force. We went out to a place to help our 191 Cav battalion out, so our Cav Scout battalion. We had to use that, try to supplement and help out other companies when they needed it or they needed a break. And then, but they spun us up that night to go out there. And when we got out there, it was nighttime, and we were out there until the next day. And finding our guys was rough. Because we had to walk in, and they had Spectre up there, the spooky gunship, the C-130 that's outfitted with the 40 millimeter, the 105 howitzer, and then I believe it's a 30 millimeter chain gun. And they just circle around and kind of watch out for you. And when we got up there, we walked the trail that they did, and we had to grab our buddies, and we actually ended up finding my squad leader, and then one of my other guys. We ended up finding one of the NCOs, Jeffrey Mersman, who was my first team leader, pretty much when I got to the 2nd platoon. He had come from the 82nd, and we found his body, and we had to kind of pull him up the mountain. And then it was just like these poor guys had nowhere to go. They couldn't go up, they couldn't go down. They were literally stuck on this small footpath. And but that just it's a testament to when you read some of the stories about these guys, how brave they were.
You're not kidding.
Fighting for each other.
Yeah, the detail in the book is just unbelievable. It's, I don't remember how many pages, over 300 pages. I think it's close to 400 pages. And after you get through any book has to kind of build up. It's got a great opening paragraph there talking about one of the soldiers can hear the Taliban on the other side of the HESCO wall.
Yeah.
Or sandbag wall or whatever.
Yeah, Ryan.
And he's radioing back, this will be my last transmission. They're here.
Yeah.
And then did he survive?
Oh, he did. Yes, sir. He was awarded the Medal of Honor. Super, very good friend of mine. And I was actually just down in Naples with him this past, I think April. He came down here for a golf tournament. So I drove down there for the weekend and caddied him. I drove him around in the golf carts. We hit golf balls but I was very blessed to serve with some incredible men.
I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It's just people I've never met. You're just so proud of them. I'm extremely proud of our military to start with, but holy cow, and you just want to, I'm reading it, and I know I'm getting to be an old man, and I get grumpy, and I have my little pet peeves about things, but it's just like, did leadership not realize what they were sending these people out to do, what they're asking them to do, to go on that trail, which you knew? I mean, I saw the pictures of the ambush area in the book. And that's the cool thing about the book. You get to see how steep these mountains are, and that shell rock that you step on, it breaks apart and you slide down the hill, and hell, you might fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
But it's just like, no, you're trying to achieve an objective, and they're taking orders from their bosses, but it just seems like sometimes common sense isn't employed when you're making these decisions. Well, again, I was not in the military, everybody, so me criticizing them is probably the wrong thing to do. But unfortunately, we had people like that in law enforcement as well that would make bad decisions. And thank God we all came out of it. Not all of us. Some people do make the ultimate sacrifice. After that ambush, and I think the town was called, is it Aranus?
Aranis.
Aranus.
Yes, sir.
Now, the next thing, there was a patrol that went out with a guy named Matt Taylor.
Yeah.
And I think you were on that patrol, right?
Yes, sir. So the Taliban, there was a town outside of kind of back down the valley called Muladesh. And the Muladesh Bridge.
Common spelling, right?
Common spelling. The Muladesh Bridge, what the Taliban would do is they'll make good on their threats. They tell you, hey, if you work for the Americans, we're going to come to your house, we're going to murder you, and we're going to rape your family, and they'll make good on it. And so they were setting up, we call them enemy TCPs, traffic control points. And they were threatening all these villagers that were coming through, and hey, if you work with the Americans, we'll come to your house and we'll kill you. And so we were going to go set up an ambush and see if we could grab some of them that were doing it. And so second and third squad, we're going to walk the road. And then, so let me backtrack a little bit. We had an OP above Bella, and we would all take turns. We would rotate, and we would spend a couple days up there, and then we'd come back down, and the next guys would go up there. And you're kind of the eyes and ears of the cop. And then above us, across the valley, was one of our Afghan security checkpoints. And it was manned by a couple of the Afghan security guards. And so I got asked, I was a SAW gunner at the time.
SAW, and explain what SAW is.
A SAW is the M249. It's a full auto 5.56 light machine gun. Incredible. I love them. They're great. You can put a 200 round drum on them. You could put a 100 round, we call them nut sacks, on them. But it's a squad automatic weapon. And so I was a SAW gunner at the time, and I got asked if I wanted to go with 2 sniper teams. Because we have in the battalion, we have a scout platoon. And so they're the ones that are the sniper teams. They've got the SR-25s, the Barrett 50 cals, bolt action rifles. And they asked, hey, would you like to go to be security for them? Because our platoon sergeant, Matt Kaler, was going with them. And what our job was going to be is we were going to go up and through that Afghan security checkpoint, and we were going to skirt around the ridge line, and we were going to set up those 2 sniper hides to overwatch second and third squad as they went out to the bridge. And so it was about 4:30ish in the morning, and we had climbed up there, and one of the scouts actually came from our platoon. And he used to be our platoon's RTO, our radio guy for our platoon leader. And it's full loom, so the moon is 100%, and it's January of 2008, January 26, 2008. I mean, it was so bright outside as we're walking up, you could literally lift your night vision and see where you were going.
Wow.
And that's how bright it was. And so we get up to the top, just outside the sea wire for the checkpoint. They had 3 bunkers, 2 of which I knew about. The lower one I didn't know about at the time. And we tried to get the Afghan security commander on the radio, and nothing. Couldn't even find him down at the fob. Nobody could find him. We couldn't get him on the radio. And Matt was such an incredible leader that his loss, I mean, it hurt the platoon. And one of those guys you look up to, just an incredible leader, always thinking of his Joes before himself. And so he said, hey guys, this could be dangerous. Hang back. I'll see if I can go make contact with the guys up there. And so he makes his way into the sea wire, and he gets between like the first and second bunker, and then we hear a 3-round burst, and then we don't hear anything else. We start screaming, we're Americans, and then we hear another 3 gunshots. And so finally we just push in there, and as we come making our way up, we find Matt had been shot and killed. And yeah, that was kind of rough. And so the 5 of us are up there trying to deal with that. We've got the Afghan security guards coming out. I believe there were 9. 6 of them we knew about because they were all kind of coming out. We're trying to give them commands in Pashto. And Muhammad Dean, the guy that did it, kind of like walks over with another guy to kind of like look at Matt's body. And I walked over and I kind of shoved him away. And then he and this other guy take off running. And then the other guys come out and they take off running down this ridge line.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't know at the time was that there were 3 guys that were hiding in the 3rd bunker below. So one of the scouts and I go up inside these 2 bunkers and we start unloading all the rifles and the PKMs, their machine guns. We tried smashing a couple of them so they couldn't come back and use them. And I was holding cover behind this rock when the sergeant in charge kind of came up to me and put his hand on my shoulder and was like, "I'm sorry." And I could feel the tears like coming down my face.
The Afghani guy?
No, one of the NCOs that was up there, the NCO in charge of the scouts, the sergeant in charge. He was an E5. He comes up and he puts his hand on my shoulder. He's like, "I'm sorry," and I just feel the tears come out of my face. And knew Matt was gone, and now we had the other challenge of trying to get him back down the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So we put him on like this body bag, and we're trying to drag him, but it's ice, and we're trying to carry him, but it's slippery, so we're all slipping and falling, and you don't want to disrespect the body. And so the E5 picks him up, Stamper throws him over his shoulder and carries Matt back down. And the guy that came from our platoon and we hang out behind them to make sure these guys don't come back to try to ambush us again.
Right.
And the birds couldn't come up there and pick Matt up. And so we had to make our way back down the mountain with him. And now we're not even going down the trail. Now we're just sliding down the side of the mountain. And our platoon had come up to grab us. And so that loss hit really hard with the platoon.
Mm-hmm.
That was that was a rough time.
Now, is that the point where higher ups decided to move out of Bella and create a new base?
No, we stayed at Bella for quite a while. Yeah, we were at Bella for I'm trying to remember the time frame, see when we went back, but we were there for a couple more months, and then first platoon came back out, and then they closed down Bella because we were gonna create that FOB, call it Cop Kaler in Wanat, and that would be the furthest northern base that we would have up into the Nuristan province.
And one thing I read is at the same time there was action in other parts of Afghanistan that the Army was involved with, and it seemed like a lot of resources were being drawn over to them, kind of leaving you guys high and dry is what it sounded like. But then when you looked at the times of enemy contact in your area versus other areas of Afghanistan, you guys had a much higher percentage at that time. So it makes you wonder, why didn't they divert resources to you guys up there?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, Battle Company out in the Korengal Valley was getting it every day. They were getting into ticks, troops in contact, firefights every day. During the day, at night, when you were a blessing, you heard the 155s, the howitzers, the field artillery going off all the time in support of them. They were constantly getting into ticks out in the Korengal, and it was a busy AO.
Now we're getting into this really, really big battle that's coming while you guys are trying to set up a new base. How do you say it? Wanat?
Wanat, yes, sir.
And the book includes photographs. And you're setting the base up right next to, there's a mosque, there's like a little bazaar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think these are very primitive structures. It's not like the blue mosque you see in Istanbul, Turkey or anything like this. I'm guessing, I don't know. But I mean, this isn't a really developed area, right?
No, there's a village across the river. There's some more of the village to the east. It kind of scattered about, like little bondays here and there up in the mountains, but nothing like pronounced as you would see in Kabul or.
And you look at these pictures, and as I'm reading it, they don't bring in the right equipment to get the Huskos. Is that what you call them?
The Heskos, yes, sir.
Huskos, yeah. To get those built correctly so that you have a secure outer perimeter. I mean, it sounded like just the bare minimum was being done until things could come in where you would, considering you're in a combat zone, you'd think that maybe let's get our ducks in a row. And then when we go in, we get this done and over with. And these guys have got some protection. Obviously that's not what happened here.
No. And I didn't know too much about what was going on in the back end. And I'm just little old Mike Denton, Joe Schmo soldier. And so, okay, we'll go out there and you want us to fill sandbags and build our defenses. We'll fill sandbags. And we actually created our own, like when I was in Wanat, I was at the traffic control point, and we filled all of our own sandbags, and we leveled out the ground and made our own fighting positions, and yeah, there was some stuff about the HESCOs not being filled, and
it was almost impossible to dig in the dirt with a shovel, wasn't it? It was really hard packed ground there.
It was, but we made it work.
Yeah, you do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
It's quit calling me sir. That's the first time I said that since we started.
It is, yeah. I'm gonna see how many I can sneak in there before you catch it.
Well, I'm old. I'm probably missing a lot here. Here's the kind of kicker of this whole thing. How close were you guys to returning to the United States when this is all starting to happen?
I want to say within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we were all kind of leaving in spurts, the platoon, because when the new unit comes in, you do this thing called left seat, right seat, and you kind of stay behind. You leave an element behind to kind of show them around, and hey, this is what we've been dealing with in the AO, and right, and a lot of that's on the officer level. But we had, you keep some Joes there, and so we were all going to kind of leave in waves. And I want to say, I think maybe I had a week left in country. And
that makes perfect sense, because the new guys coming in, they need some of the old guys there to show them, hey, here's the problems we've encountered. Here's, suspect areas. This is how we counter this, that, and the other. You got to learn the ropes. You just can't come in cold and expect to do the same job that was being done there without losing a lot of people. And
the Taliban knows that. They'll test you. They'll see, kind of same, like, especially when you get like a new cop.
Yeah.
And you work certain areas, they're going to want to test you and see who you are and if you're going to put up with their stuff or not. And sometimes they may not know that you've been a cop for a long time and you're just new to this area. So they're going to kind of test you a little bit. And same thing with the Taliban. They'll test you. They'll pay attention to certain patches and see who they want to mess with and who they don't. And they'll see if they shoot at you, what you're going to do back.
God bless you guys. I'm in awe of what you did. I'm in awe that you're even here on the interview today. I saw one picture.
God's good grace, sir.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%. In fact, I want to mention Jason, how do you say his last name?
Oh, Vader?
Vader.
Yes, sir.
That there's a section in the book where he talks about he was a strong Christian out there at the base. And I don't know if you were a Christian at the time, but it talks about how he was able to talk to you and you took heed to what he was saying to you. And that emboldened or strengthened your faith at the time. Did. And it seems like that's continued. It seems like it caught on pretty well back then. Unfortunately, Jason was killed in the line of duty here in the next battle we're going to talk about, but we'll hold off on that just a little bit here. I saw a picture that referred to you as a grenadier.
Yes, sir.
Now, so what does that mean?
So I was given a rifle or an M4 that has it's called an M203, which is a 40 millimeter grenade tube that attaches underneath the rifle. And they are fun.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah,
but
it's fun to launch those.
In this picture, you're wearing a belt of the little grenades that go in there.
A little bandolier of my grenades.
So what happens if a round hits one of those grenades?
I hope it doesn't explode.
I tell you what, man.
Some guys would wear them around their waist and have them on like their back, on their waist, on their back, and I was just kind of wanted them on my front. And I always kind of thought the same thing, so I carried 3 hand grenades in one of my pouches too. And I always kind of thought, like, man, if I take a round in the side of this vest and one of these hand grenades goes off, what's going to happen?
Yeah, we won't be having an interview.
I'd be everywhere.
And that's I'm certainly not. I'm doing that tongue in cheek. I don't mean to trivialize what you.
Oh no, not at all. I understand
over there.
No, I understand.
Well, I remember when I was in Colombia and we were living up in Medellin, looking after that butthole that we were after. And sometimes the Colombian army would go out on patrols with us. And they had one guy that carried a grenade launcher. I don't think it even had a rifle. It was just a grenade launcher. And he had 2 bandoliers strapped across his chest, crisscross across his chest. And I always made a point of getting as far away from him on a patrol as I could. Because I've never seen one of those grenades hit with a bullet, but I just figured that's not going to be good.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those I carry them because I need them, but if it gets hit, I hope this thing doesn't go off.
Yeah, if it does go off, it'll probably end quickly.
I hope.
And I tell you again, the other thing was this: you're building this base in the low ground. I mean, even the landscape is terraced for, I guess, planting crops and so forth out there. So there's all these levels that people have vantage points over top of the base. It just makes
Mhm.
absolutely no sense to me. And I'm reading there about these plywood buildings that you build. I've never seen a piece of plywood stop a 7.62 round. I mean, there's no protection there at all.
Yeah. That was kind of like how Bella was. So the only trucks that could get into Bella to come up to the valley were the Hilux trucks, like the little Toyota trucks that they would pack 30 people on somehow, or the jingle trucks that would come through.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like Bella. Like, we always kind of laughed and joked around. Like, you could literally drive down the road and pop a grenade and throw it in there, and it'd land right in the middle of our walkway.
Yep. Now you guys did build an outpost that was kind of I think it's referred to as topside, which was somewhat of an overwatch post, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was OP topside. Yep. To get the highest point up there for the best vantage point. And that's where Ryan was. Ryan Pitch got the Medal of Honor. He was one of the NCOs up there, one of the non-commissioned officers up there.
But even that location, you still had people, you still had mountains and shooting sites above that, right? That could shoot down on the overwatch post.
Yes, sir.
Wow. It just, I just don't understand it. I haven't seen the terrain. I guess that had a lot to do with it, but what is it? The old saying is failure to prepare is preparing to fail.
Yeah.
I'm not criticizing you guys. I promise I'm not. I'm trying to understand.
I understand
the logic. And then was it July 13th of 2008 was the big event, right?
Yes, sir. That's when the firefight started. So we left July 8th to go out there. And that's my brother's birthday. So I remember calling him and telling him happy birthday, calling my family. We all kind of called our families, the initial group of us that were going out there. Hey, it's going to be, I don't know how long it's going to be before I call you. But we're going out there and we don't have any communications. And so kind of just tell everybody you love them. And there was a bunch of joking around that we were all going to die. And so we got out there and it stormed on us really bad that first night. And it was kind of one of those things, and you're just so miserable, you just start laughing. And it's pouring on us and water's falling inside the truck and we're taking turns up in the gun and water's just pouring in and we're all just laughing. It's just so miserable that we're all just laughing. And then the next morning comes and then we kind of started getting to work. And then the morning of the 13th is when it all started.
Yeah. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of our listeners know this because I know we have a lot of law enforcement and military that listen to this show. This is gallows humor, but it's what you do to tolerate what you're going through. You can sit there and feel sorry for yourself, or you can make the best of the situation. Even a crappy situation, you try to make the best of it. But when this attack happens, and I've read two different numbers. I've read that the odds were 45 good guys against 200 bad guys, or 50 good guys against as many as 300 bad guys.
Yeah, we had 49 of us out there. And I've heard the same numbers for the bad guys too. There was a big investigation that came afterwards. There's the official Army's investigation. The War College wrote a book about it for officers to study at the War College, and I kind of stayed away from a lot of that stuff during the investigation. I kind of reclused myself from a lot of that, but yeah, those numbers had come out, and we took quite a significant loss that day. 27 wounded. 9 ultimately killed.
And so what I want to do, Mike, is we divide our interviews up into 2 parts. So I'm gonna call a cut right here for our listeners. This is the end of part 1. We're getting ready to go into the Battle of Wanat. So you definitely want to come back for part 2. This is heartbreaking. This is tear jerking, but it's also motivating when you're going to hear about the courage and the stamina and the perseverance that our people over there showed. And some were able to walk away from this. So thank you for joining us for part 1. Come on back for part 2. Hey, players, that's the end of part 1. Part 2 comes out, as always, on Tuesday. In the meantime, just a reminder that Game of Crimes is now posting interview videos on YouTube. You can find those at Game of Crimes Podcast. Our website is gameofcrimespodcast.com, where you'll find all our episodes, our guests, book lists, merchandise, and more. And for more content, join us on patreon.com/gameofcrimes. I have several monthly episodes that range from silly to serious, so come on over and join the fun. In the meantime, everyone stay safe. I'll see you tomorrow for part 2.